Right now, somewhere in your chest, there is a feeling that has no clean name. It is not sadness exactly. It is not hunger. It is not fear. But it is something your body treats as a five-alarm emergency. Something so ancient and so deeply wired into you that your immune system responds to it the same way it responds to a physical wound. You feel it when a room full of people still leaves you hollow. When you put your phone down and the silence becomes a weight. When you realize that being surrounded by others is not the same as being known by them. Scientists call it loneliness, but that word is too small for what it actually is. Loneliness is not a mood. It is not weakness. It is not something you fix by simply being around more people. Loneliness, as neuroscientist John Cacioppo spent 30 years proving, is a biological alarm system, one that evolution built into you for a specific urgent reason. And here is what makes that so strange. The alarm is still going off, louder than ever, in a world more connected than any that has ever existed. Think about your body for a moment. When you get a cut, your immune system floods the area with inflammation. White blood cells rush in. The wound becomes red, warm, painful. That is your body working. That is survival. Cacioppo discovered something that changed how scientists think about social pain. When you feel persistently lonely, your body triggers that exact same inflammatory response. Not metaphorically, literally. Chronic loneliness elevates inflammatory markers in your blood, the same markers linked to heart disease, stroke, and accelerated aging. Your body does not distinguish between a wound on your skin and the wound of being unseen. That seems extreme until you understand where you came from. Go back 200,000 years. Your ancestors did not survive because they were the strongest. They were not the fastest. A human alone on the open savanna was a dead human. No claws, no armor, slow on flat ground. Basically useless against anything that wanted to eat them. What your ancestors had was each other. The group was the technology, cooperation, shared childcare, collective hunting, coordinated defense. Every advantage your lineage had came from staying together. Separation from the group was not loneliness. It was a death sentence, so your brain evolved a mechanism to prevent it. Loneliness is that mechanism. When you are socially disconnected, your nervous system treats it as a threat to survival on the same level as physical danger. Your stress hormones spike, your sleep fragments. Your threat detection circuits go into overdrive. You start reading neutral faces as hostile. You become hypervigilant, scanning for danger that, 200,000 years ago, would absolutely have been there. Researcher Naomi Eisenberger at UCLA ran a now-famous experiment called Cyberball. Participants played a simple computerized ball-tossing game with what they believed were two other real players. Midway through, the other players stopped passing the ball to the participant, just excluded them, silently, in a game, for a few minutes. The brain scans told a striking story. The same region that activates when you feel physical pain, the dorsal anterior cingulate cortex, lit up during social exclusion. The same region, not a similar one, the same one. Your brain registers being left out of a ball game the same way it registers being burned. That is not a metaphor. That is architecture, and it gets stranger, because Eisenberger's team also found that when participants took acetaminophen, ordinary pain reliever, before the experiment, their social pain was reduced. A drug designed for headaches blunted the sting of rejection, because to your nervous system, they are the same category of experience. You were built to feel exclusion as pain. That is not a flaw. That is the alarm working exactly as designed. The problem is the world changed faster than the alarm did. Modern life has created a paradox that no point in human history has ever seen before. You can be surrounded by millions of people and still be profoundly, biologically alone. You can have hundreds of connections online and feel hollowed out by noon, because the alarm does not respond to quantity. It responds to quality. What your nervous system is actually measuring is not how many people are around you. It is whether you feel known, whether you believe someone sees you accurately, whether there is at least one relationship where you do not have to perform, edit, or compress yourself to be accepted. Cacioppo called this perceived social isolation, and he found it was the perception, not the reality, that determined the biological outcome. A person with 10 acquaintances who feels unknown will show the same stress markers as a person sitting alone in a room. The number of contacts in your phone is irrelevant. The depth of even one connection changes your physiology. Here is what makes this research uncomfortable for the modern world. Loneliness is epidemic, and it is accelerating. In 2023, the U.S. Surgeon General Vivek Murthy declared loneliness a public health crisis. Half of American adults reported measurable levels of loneliness. The numbers were not much different in the UK, Japan, or Australia. Murthy cited research showing that lacking strong social connection carries a mortality risk equivalent to smoking 15 cigarettes a day. 15 cigarettes. Every day. Just from being persistently without deep connection. That number circulates in public health conversations now, and people still treat loneliness like a personality problem, like something the lonely person should just fix by going outside more, joining a club, putting themselves out there, as if the alarm could be reset by simply adding volume. But think about what the science is actually describing. If loneliness were just an emotion, a bad feeling to push through, it would not restructure your immune system. It would not rewire your threat perception. It would not fragment your sleep the same way chronic stress does. It would not show up as measurable inflammation in your bloodstream. The reason loneliness does all of those things is because it is a survival signal. Your body is trying to tell you something that it considers urgent. And like any alarm ignored long enough, it starts causing its own damage. Cacioppo spent decades trying to reverse this. He was not interested in describing the problem. He wanted to understand what actually helped. And what he found was both simple and deeply inconvenient. Connection requires vulnerability. Not performed vulnerability. Not the kind you do in a post. Real vulnerability. The moment you allow someone to see something true about you that you have not edited for their approval. That is the signal your nervous system recognizes. That is what quiets the alarm. Everything else, the party, the chat thread, the crowded bar, is noise. Researcher Brené Brown's work mapped this same finding from a completely different angle. Studying thousands of people over years, she found that those who described themselves as having a strong sense of belonging shared one consistent trait. They were willing to be seen imperfectly. They had at least one relationship where they did not manage the impression they were making. The nervous system, it turns out, can tell the difference. It knows when you are performing and when you are present. It knows when you are surrounded and when you are held. This is why social media does not fix loneliness, and research increasingly suggests it can worsen it. Every perfectly composed post is a performance. Every curated interaction is managed. Your brain is getting inputs that look like connection, while your deeper nervous system registers that nothing real has been exchanged. The alarm stays on. Think about the loneliest moment you have had in a crowd. The moment at a party where everyone was laughing and you were watching it happen from somewhere behind your own eyes. The moment you realized no one in the room actually knew what you were carrying that week. That feeling, that specific quality of being invisible inside visibility, is your ancient alarm doing exactly what it was built to do. It is telling you the group is not real yet. It is telling you, go deeper, or this does not count. Your ancestors did not just need proximity. They needed the kind of closeness where someone would notice if you were missing. Where someone would share the last food, where someone would grieve if you were gone. That is what the alarm is calibrated to detect, not the crowd, the grief that would follow your absence. And here is the part that is hardest to sit with. In a world of more human contact than any generation before you has ever had, more messages, more faces, more digital proximity, the alarm is louder than it has been in recorded history. That is not a coincidence. It is a measurement. The world got bigger, the connections got shallower, and the ancient cellular part of you, the part that survived ice ages and predators and starvation by being truly known by at least a few other people, noticed.